Hey, I'm Pete with Mosko Moto, and in this video today, I'm going to talk about our Navigator cell phone case, which I have mounted here on my Nomax tank bag. To give you a little bit of context on the Navigator, I'm 100% cell phone navigation these days. I haven't actually owned a dedicated hardwired GPS for years. So that said, there are also some really significant disadvantages to using a cell phone for navigation, and I'll just run through some of those really quick. You've got the fragility of the phone, you got the battery life, you got the danger of theft, you got glare, you got overheating issues, and then also there's a recurring issue with vibration on the motorcycle and damage to the camera stabilizer. That's something you really see with the handlebar mounts, especially when riding a single cylinder bike and when you're riding off-road. So for those reasons and others, some people are always going to prefer hardwired GPS, and I totally get that. And some people use both. Even if you have a hardwired GPS, there's still going to be moments where you want to use your cell phone for navigation, and it's still really handy to have it mounted somewhere that's like really central and easy to get to in case you just want to bang out a quick route to a hotel on Google Maps or something like that. I've used the Navigator now on all kinds of trips over the last several years, and I'm just going to walk through the various features of it and then tell you how I personally use it. So let's start with the mounting position. Where you mount it on the tank bag MOLLE panel makes a big difference in how you're going to be able to see it. But also, if you're trying to minimize interference with your riding position when you're up on the bike, that's another thing to take into account. So those are some of the factors that dictate whether I'll mount it low or mount it high, and it totally depends on how it's sitting on the tank on the particular bike that I'm using it on. In this case, I have it mounted pretty low because it's on a GS 850, so it has a flat spot on the tank up high, and if I put it up there, I can't see it at all, so I like to mount it at the bottom. With this MOLLE panel, it's really important to mount it on the tank bag right, otherwise you might lose your phone. It comes with these Hypalon mounting straps, so you're just going to weave those between the webbing on the back of the MOLLE panel and the MOLLE panel on the tank bag. So you're going to weave it through as many as you can get and then wrap the Velcro ends around and stick them down. On the corner of the Navigator, there's a little D-ring loop. I recommend leashing it. It doesn't actually come with a leash. It really should come with a leash, and maybe that's something we'll add in the future. I always leash mine. That's partly just in case there's a Velcro failure or a crash. I don't want it coming off, but also so that if somebody was to realize that it was Velcroed on there, they can't just grab it and run with it. They can't snatch it. So I actually use the little leash that comes on the bottom of the dry bags with our Reckless 10 kit, but you can use any kind of little carabiner or keychain, just any kind of leash, connect it somewhere in your tank bag and then connect it to that little D-ring. One of the really neat things on the Navigator is this sunshade. So the sunshade is removable. So if it's cool out or cloudy out and you just want full visibility, you can just take this off and tuck it somewhere else in your bags. It also can be rigged on the top up here, and then it flops down, or you can remove it like I do and you can rig it on the bottom. The key difference is when it's rigged on the top, when you're riding, the wind is moving this way. So when it's rigged on top, the wind is going to blow it back down. Sometimes you want that. Other times, if you have it mounted this way, you're going to want to be able to rip it open and have the wind flop it down in your lap so you can see your phone. You can take it and tuck it under the main flap like that. So I've just been riding in days with 40 to 50 mile an hour side winds, and plus going 70 or 80 miles an hour forward, and this absolutely held like this. And one of the cool things about the sunshade is air can still get underneath it, and that keeps your phone cool even if it's warm out. So the sunshade is really key for keeping your phone from overheating, because that's just an issue in general with cell phones. That's one of the big advantages of this over having it mounted on your handlebars. It's also great for theft protection. When I'm traveling overseas, especially in poor countries, the value of the phone is just so high. Sometimes in traffic, especially in the city where it's kind of gridlock and people are walking around next to me, I just prefer to keep it under the cover and people can't really see that there's like a $1,500, $1,000 phone. The Navigator comes with this little internal spacer. This is because phones are all different sizes. Some are big, some are small, and we wanted to create something that kept the phone from moving around in there. It doesn't work for all phones. It's not totally necessary. I'm using it on this trip, but on a lot of other trips, I've just kind of taken these out and thrown them away. There's a little port down here at the bottom. One of the issues I mentioned earlier with cell phones is the battery life. And so when you're using your phone for navigation, you're going to want to have it connected to the bike pretty much all day. There's a little port down here at the bottom of the sunshade, and then also a port at the bottom of the bag so that your cable can run up there from the bike and keep your phone charged. And that's great too, especially if you're camping, because then whenever you get to your campsite, your phone's got 100% charge every night, and you can do your route planning, mess around, look at your photos or whatever, and it'll last all night. And then the next day, plug it back into the bike, and it just stays charged throughout the trip. I lost several phones, cameras to vibration issues before I switched to the Navigator when I was using just the handlebar mounts. The two issues I had with those handlebar mounts, one was the vibration, and then the second was occasionally in a big hit or if I crashed the bike, it would break off and I cracked the screen on my cell phone several times that way. So the Navigator has totally solved those issues for me. I've been using it for years. I've used it on all kinds of terrain, all kinds of bikes. I have not lost a camera or a phone yet to breakage or vibration issues. So the tank bag and the Navigator provide enough vibration dampening that you won't have that kind of classic issue with the camera stabilizer. One of the big issues with using a cell phone for navigation is the glare and sun, especially as this panel starts to get a little bit weathered on here, but just in general, even when you're not using the Navigator, glare is an issue with cell phones, and especially if there's dust, especially in the middle of the day. So there's kind of a period of about 4 hours where the glare makes it really difficult to navigate. And there's not really a perfect solution for that. The Navigator doesn't have a perfect solution for it either. I'll typically take my left hand off the bars and kind of cup over it like this to provide a little shade. Often I can see what I need that way, or I'll just stop and take a look at my phone. I mean, I'm not rally racing, I'm traveling, so I don't really mind pausing for a minute, just getting my route straight, and then continuing. I'm almost always wearing gloves on a motorcycle, and so that's an issue with phones, regardless of whether they're in the Navigator or not. A lot of gloves now have kind of cell phone friendly materials on the fingers or on the entire glove. I'm actually using a hand-up dirt bike glove these days that has cell phone friendly contact material all over the palm and fingers, and my phone works fine through the Navigator clear panel using those gloves. I realize that's a lot of information about a small, relatively simple, inexpensive bag, but hopefully it helps you make up your mind about whether this might be a cell phone solution for you. I interact with this bag like 20 times a day whenever I'm traveling on a bike, so I have a lot of thoughts about it, the good, the bad, the ugly. It's not perfect, but it really gets the job done, and for me personally, it works better than using a hardwired GPS and better than using a cell phone mount on my handlebars. If you have any questions about the Navigator that I didn't cover in this video and aren't on the website, leave us a comment below, we'll reply, or you can always send us a note at moskomoto@moskomoto.com and we'll get back to you that way. Thank you so much for watching.